Can you hear me from right here? Okay. All the theists I know, they would say that if they had to make a choice between saying that all of science is false or theism is false, they would say that theism is false. And what I want to argue today is that there is a contemporary scientific theory that is highly confirmed, and that if true, entails that God does not exist, and therefore that atheism is true. Now that theory is Einstein's general theory of relativity as applied to the universe in Big Bang cosmology. Now, in this universe, I've drawn here the first 3 minutes of the universe. This is the first minute. This may be called the Big Bang. This is the first minute, the second minute, and third minute. And as you can see, the first minute causes the second minute, it sufficiently causes it, and the second minute sufficiently causes the third minute, and that the fourth minute. So what that means is that the universe, each state of the universe is sufficiently causally explained by prior states of the universe. And then if that's the case, then there's no room or place or possibility for there to be a supernatural being, such as God, to cause the universe, since the universe has already caused itself in the metaphorical sense that each part of the universe is caused by another part. And if that's true, there's nothing left for God to cause. And one might say that, well, if each part of the universe is caused by another part, then what about the whole of all the parts? Isn't that something that God could cause? And I think the answer to that would be no, because a whole is wholly identical with all the parts. And so all the parts entail the existence of the whole. Now this is true whether the whole be a set or a mere logical sum or an aggregate or whatever type of whole you want to conceive. And so if there are two things that are logically equivalent, the whole of the universe and all the parts of the universe, and one is explained, then that means the other one is also explained. So if each part of the universe is causally explained by another part, and all the parts of the universe are logically equivalent to the whole that's wholly identical with all the parts, that implies the whole of the universe is caused. So therefore, God can't cause any of the parts, God can't cause the whole, so God can't cause anything. And on Einstein's theory, the universe is completely self-caused. Now this is even true if the universe began 15 billion years ago in the Big Bang. Because what happened here, there was no first state of the universe that is uncaused by something natural or physical, and that would need God to cause it. Because if you take the first minute, okay, the third minute is divided into two halves. It's half a minute, half a minute, half a minute, half a minute. And this is half a minute, half a minute, half a minute, and this whole minute causes this whole minute. Now this is the first minute. Now here we have half the minute. Then I'm dividing up the other half of the minute into actually I shouldn't have 1/4 here. I should have 1/2 here. I should have 1/4. 1/4, 1/8, 1/16, 1/32, and so on. And you can do that in real numbers as well, which is how Einstein's general theory of relativity works, because its mathematics uses real numbers, just as did Newton's and just as do the spatial temporal variables of quantum mechanics, even though the energy and momentum variables don't range over a continuum of points. And so if we take this way of dividing up the universe into the beginning. We have a half a second, quarter of a second, 1/8 of a second, and we keep on going through all the real numbers. And what happens is we never reach a first state. And the reason why is that the first instant of the first minute is physically impossible according to Einstein's general theory of relativity. And it's physically impossible because every quantity of the universe would be some number divided by 0, and division by 0 is impermissible in mathematics. So, for example, the temperature of the first state would be some number n over 0, so that's impossible. And the density of the first state, if there was one, would be some density number n over 0, which is impossible. And the curvature of the first state would be n over 0 as well. So it's impossible that there would be a first state of the universe, which means that the first minute is half open, which means that instead of there being a first instant, for every instant there is an earlier instant. And even though that doesn't mean time is infinitely past in that direction, it goes on for a number of minutes or hours, it begins right here at this first minute. And the sense in which each temporal instantaneous slice is caused is that as you continue to divide up these slices towards, or you want to number them by the real numbers, you're never going to get to a first instantaneous state or slice of the universe that would count as the first instant of the universe. So you would get, for every state, to be caused by some other state. Now that follows from the mathematics of real numbers, and that is used in Einstein's general theory of relativity. And that implies that between any two real numbers, there is another real number. And so if we delete the first instant, then that means we're deleting a real number. And so what is there between that state with its real number that that's related to some other state? Well, there can't be a second state, because if we delete the first state, if there were a second state, then that would be the first state. Because for real numbers, after every state, there is another state. So for any state we point to, there's going to be another state in between it. So if we delete this first state of the universe and want to say that this is the second state, so this is now the second state and can be caused by God, that would be false, because between any two instantaneous states, there would be another state. And this state would cause that state. And if we're going to delete this, we want to say, well, if we delete this, then there's this state that's going to be the first state and can be caused by God. That would be false too, because between this and this, there's another state. And you keep dividing up by halves infinitely. And you never ever get to a first state because you've already deleted the first state from the first minute. It's like, in terms of hours, like taking 12 noon to 1 o'clock. It's like deleting the instant 12 noon. Well, there's no instant that comes immediately after 12 noon. Any instant you point to, there's going to be other instants prior to it. And the same with the beginning of the universe. And so what that shows is even if the universe begins, each part of the universe is caused by earlier parts. So it doesn't matter if the universe is infinitely old or not. Even if the universe begins, there's no place for God to create the first state because there is no first state. And so what we have here is a universe that explains its own existence in the metaphorical sense that each part of the universe is caused by an earlier part, and B, all the parts of the universe are logically equivalent to the whole of the universe. And if all the parts are causally explained, then it logically follows that the whole is explained, because the whole would then be a logical entailment of all the parts. So there's nothing whatsoever left for God to explain. No parts, no whole. And since this is the currently accepted theory, Big Bang cosmology, which is a solution to Einstein's equation, general theory of relativity, okay, then it follows that the universe is completely naturally caused by its parts, and there's absolutely no room for God to cause anything, and therefore God does not exist.